from the computer. And I thought it was RFI at one point, but you know, it happens during receive. And then I've got to reboot. So if I do disappear, it's probably because I'm rebooting, and I sometimes have to reboot several times, so I don't know. I got to hunt down this problem. If it's not one thing, it's another. But, yeah, Paul, you were talking about that Datsun there. Yeah, I remember I had a girlfriend who had a Datsun, was it 210 or something? And that thing was quite a rust bucket. One time we were driving, I was living in New London, and I was driving the car across the bridge that goes, Gold Star Bridge, whatever, it crosses over the Thames River, and I guess the independent suspension became a little bit too independent, and the wheel basically like caved in on, I think it was the rear driver's side. Boy, that was funny. And then the head gasket, I had not too many years after that, I had a Mazda B2000, cute little pickup truck, and the head gasket went on that, and I replaced the gasket, and I was still having problems. I don't know, something about the aluminum block or something. Maybe it just doesn't like, it warps or something. I don't know. But that was a fun truck. I missed that little mini pickup truck. It was just so nice for throwing stuff in back and going wherever you want, and small. Anyway, yeah, Joe, the KW1 sounds good. I wonder, there are not too many of those. I know, was it Buzz? W3EMD has got one of those, and I think he's the only other station I've spoken to running one of those. So very nice, very nice. I guess you don't have internet problems with that thing, and thank God. Anyway, WA2, PJP, and the group K1YW.
K1YW, WA2PJP, and the group. Yeah, very good, Greg. Yeah, I never had interconnect problems with this thing, and or IP problems or anything like that. It always seemed to be pretty reliable, and I never had to reboot it or anything. I just turned the power switch on, and it seems to work. But the A9's doing real good down here. A little bit of QSB setting in, but hearing you quite well. And Paul, very good on the Datsun and all that. I never liked aluminum heads on a cast iron block. I never liked that. And all the work I've ever done, all the head changing and all the upgrades, I've never run aluminum heads on a cast block. Never did. I never liked doing that. Aluminum intake manifold, that's another story. But as far as the heads are concerned, I never ran aluminum heads on anything. Yeah, and as far as my car hobby, right now it's on the back burner. I haven't done any work because the last 4 years I've been just totally immersed in trying to get this new house done, get everything finished, and we're actually seeing the light at the end of the tunnel now. The house is pretty much done. I'm doing small stuff, still putting doorknobs in places, things like that. As I mentioned, the barn is getting finished. I got the contractors out here today. In fact, I can't stay too much longer. I got to get out there with them. I just came in for a few minutes to grab a quick bite and grab a coffee. And I'm trying to get over a cold too to top it off. Yeah, and very good on Pam. Man, it's been a long time since I've been down to your place and stuff, and man, it's got to be, God, what, 15 years since last time I was at your place, and Greg, yeah, I was up at Buzz's place too. I seen his KW1. Maybe God, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. I guess was when last time I was at Buzz's place. But Buzz is a real good guy too. Enjoy talking to him. Very knowledgeable about different things. Anyway, I can't stay too long. Like I said, I got a crew outside right now, so I got to kind of get out there. But Paul, good catching up with you, and Greg, good making a contact with you today. But let me get it down to you, Paul. Say hello to Pam for me. And hopefully one day me and Joanna will get down there and we can get together. WA3VJB to take it, WA2PJP.
Yeah, I just hope it's not so long from now that, well, I guess on one hand, if the kids are old enough to enjoy the dogs, then all of us can go out in the woods there and take a hike. So there's that. But yeah, I've only seen pictures of the kids when they were quite little. I think one was a babe in arms still. And I only saw pictures when you were dating Joanne, so that's been a while too. The Radio Lodge has been up and running for, I guess, 20 years this year. So I think it was pretty new because it was still pretty orderly when you were here. And that's been a long time on its own. And I'm happy to hear that as things go, the worst of it might have passed as far as complications and anxiety and stress of the new house. To hear that you're actually going to pursue your flight instructor's rating again is good news. I suppose you're still current for general aviation. And yeah, I know that's always been a really interesting pursuit for you. I've only flown right seat, and I haven't flown in a long time, but it was just too expensive back when I first tried to pursue it to get my private pilot's license, and then other interests, i.e. Pam, came along, and I haven't even wanted to take it up again. I've got too many other things to deal with. I agree with you totally on the aluminum head, iron block discrepancy. I know that's been a problem, and I think the Chevy Vega was probably the worst example where it just wasn't going to work. But I don't know, Nissan made something good out of it. The 240Z and its descendants have all had aluminum heads on cast iron blocks, so they figured something out. I do know that there's a version of my cylinder head that goes on a forklift that Nissan marketed. It's called the H20. Same, exactly the same head, except it's made of cast iron. And when this happened to me after 40 years of ownership, I was so depressed that I almost was going to try to pursue a forklift cast iron replacement just so I wouldn't have to fret about the aluminum head over a cast iron block discrepancy. And Greg, yeah, the B210, that was known as the Honeybee. Its predecessor was the 1200. And the very first time I ever rode in a car at 90 miles an hour was a 1200 with 12-inch wheels, owned by none other than Chuck Ripple, the R390A virtuoso, WA4HHG, whose father owned a Datsun dealership in the early 1970s. And this was a take-home car. Wow, 90 miles an hour, said me. Those were the days, Craig. And I saw the wobbler. I didn't hear it, but interesting that you've observed that coming back again. I noticed that on here during the day today. Let me kick it back over to you quickly, Greg, so you can say goodbye to Joe. And Joe, I hope you'll be on more often here. I'd love talking with you. K1YW and the group WA3VJB.
W1WOR.
Yeah, I hear W1WOR. We'll get you in the rotation there. Yeah, very good, Paul. And Joe, yeah, good to hear you, I guess, go out there and crack the whip with those contractors and make sure they've got the circular saws going and they're not, standing around with looking at their cell phones. Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah, that B210, I remember, I had always really crappy cars, and I think I had at the time this Plymouth Ferrari. Oh man, it had a shifter on the column, and it really grinded to get into first gear. It was a horrible car to drive and all that. And then that girlfriend of mine had that B210. And man, that was such a fun car to drive. Oh, I love that thing. It was just like driving a little go-kart around. It just yeah, what a difference, world of difference, fun level and all that. So I guess it wasn't fun when the wheel fell off, but yeah, those things, I guess they had rust problems, and the roads up here, they salt them all the time. Anyway, I'll send it back to Joe. If you're signed out, then over to W1 WOR. Anyway, that other station, the name here is Greg, K1YW, and we have Paul, WA3VJB, and I think Joe is signing off or bailing out. Anyway, Joe, if you're still there, pick it up. If not, over to WOR.
Yeah, hey, Rob.
Hey, Paul. Greg, this is Whiskey 1 Whiskey Oscar Radio, Rob in Greenwich, Connecticut on the New York Westchester line. And hello, Joe. Joe went there. When he goes, he goes. Joe, you probably remember me as N1ALF. We changed our call signs there. So, funny stories about the Datsun 240, the 260, and the 210s there. We had a dealership up in Wilton, Bob Sharp's Motors. Actually, Scott Moss got into Indy racing there, but Paul Newman and what's called there, the Sharps was good friends. I used to watch them up there at up in Lime Rock and racing there. And a friend of mine who was a welder used to do Bob Sharp's seats there because he had a bad back there. But yeah, and you mentioned the Chevy Vegas. Yeah, well, I pulled that engine out and dropped a 283 in there. Over to you, Paul.
Yeah, a 283 would make it a Cosworth Vega, right? No, we used to make fun of the Vegas all the time because they were guaranteed to be crapped out by 50,000 miles. Hey, good to hear you, Rob. Nice signals from Greenwich, Connecticut here today down to Annapolis. Yeah, Bob Sharp Racing was actually made its first fortune on the Datsun 1600 and 2000. I've got the 1600, which is an overhead valve configuration. And then the 2000 was an overhead cam configuration, whose horsepower went up to 150 from the 96 horsepower of the 1600. And of course, the 2-liter block with its overhead cam arrangement, they added 2 cylinders, and out came the 240Z. But Bob Sharp Racing and Paul Newman, they also showed up at a track closer to here, Summit Point in West Virginia. Actually met Paul Newman in the pit and saw some of Bob Sharp's cars. I never saw him. There was another guy named Colonel Joe Hauser, who also was quite competitive in a Datsun 1600, I think in D class. He was up against some moneyed machines, and the little Datsun Roadster, the convertible, kind of took their lunch in some cases. So it's nice to be seen in one of these after 50 some odd years since they last were made. A lot of people don't remember them. And especially the younger generation. I think two generations have gone by now since the 1984 changeover from Datsun to Nissan as a branding function. And even older, of course, the 1970 was the last year for the model convertible. And, how many people have gone by and grown up without even seeing one of those, which actually came out before the MGB. I kind of get defensive about this. But the Datsun convertible came out in 1961 at the Tokyo Motor Show, and the MGB didn't come out until 1962. So I have to correct people when they say, oh, they just copied MG. It's like, nuh-uh. I don't think there was any copying going on, but I beg to differ on the chronology. Over to you, Greg. Hope you're hearing Rob okay. He's got a good signal here. I didn't hear what rig he was on. K1YW in the group, WA3VJB.
Okay, Paul, very good, and nice to meet you, Rob. And yeah, very interesting. Yeah, those cars that came out in the 80s were quite the thing. And like I said, I couldn't believe the difference of fun driving versus cruelty driving in that old Plymouth that I had, and and then that. The B2000 truck was a fun little truck too, and I remember when I replaced that head gasket, I got this like extra heavy-duty head gasket, and even that didn't hold up. After a while, I went back to getting was it oil in the coolant or coolant in the oil, or one of those things. So yeah. Well, I guess yeah. The two dissimilar metals, and probably the same situation, but. Anyway, I would, if you can go back in time, I would relive all that without a heartbeat. Anyway, over to you, Rob, W1WR. I'm copying you fine here. I'm running about 200 watts carrier and the a non-rig here, and then amplified, and then I have a 160 meter loop that I got to do some work on. But anyway, over to you, Rob, W1WR. Wonder what you're running. K1YW.
Yeah, W1WR. Nice to meet you, Greg. We're running a Kenwood TS890 at 23 watts there. Paul, the K70YY, I sent it out early because there was a mad rush once your article came up about the power drive up there. So mine got there in early to Bruce there. He got it Friday. It's on its way back now. So, W2VW. But it's sandbagging, sponging off the frequency. Hello, Dave there. So yeah, so that's a K70YY on its back. We'll have bigger power there. So, yeah, just the Kenwood right now. I did Paul Newman's pool. That's how I got to meet him. Paul Newman, Robert Redford. That's how I got into the pits. And up at Lime Rock, they used to race the IROCs along with those the Datsuns, and they had a lot of deer running across the track. And here, IROC and Bob Sharp was on the back end of IROC, and they had this like metal box in the back. Well, the IROC had to lock it up because of a deer ran out in front of the truck, and Bob Sharp put his nose into the back of that, pulls it off into the pits, up in the trailer, a whole new nose going back on the tracks there. So it was a funny one about the Datsuns and stuff like that, how they actually got their name there. The Germans were talking back and forth with them about the car, and they hadn't come up with the name of it. So one of the German guys says, "How quick can you get those off the assembly line?" And the Chinese guy told him how fast, and the German guy said, "Datsun."
Oh man, that's an old one, Rob.
Well, I'm sure for the ones that didn't hear it.
Yeah, very good. Well, I'm glad you got your rig sent off to Bruce there, and you're getting that serviced and brought up to snuff. I know that was an annoyance for a lot of people, and I'm kind of surprised, as persnickety as Bruce is, that he didn't notice that the thing was drifting in power to a significant degree and that it was going to be a problem. What we're talking about, Greg, is the turn-on power level versus the warmed-up power level of the Super Senior. And it varied by, in some cases 50 watts or so. And if you're running near the hairy edge for either power or audio or both, the protection circuitry in the thing will get you, and it'll trip a fault and, throw a code on you, and you'll be off the air. And it's nothing more than, turning the power off and turning it back on again to reset it. But it was an annoyance. So Bruce actually has come up with a modification to the rig that he's actually offering owners of the thing as a retrofit that keeps the power between, in my case, between 4 and 5 watts, which is fine as compared to the 20 or 30 that it was before I sent it back. So that's nice of Bruce to give that kind of attention to detail, and I found out about it in a phone call that I'd made with him, and once he told me how he did it, I was like, ooh, this is worth a write-up on a Facebook page that I help maintain for the Super Senior, and Rob jumped on that right away, and at least 2 other guys did too. I got a message from somebody saying, hey, thanks, why didn't you tell me first? So anyway, yeah, very good, Greg, on the Mazda truck, the B2000. That's kind of unusual too. You don't see them on the road anymore, not only because of the rust, I guess, but probably also because of the blown head gaskets. I guess that had a conventional inline 4, right? That did not have a rotary engine in it. Although the original rotary engines also had head gaskets problems. and seal problems. The apex seal in the early rotary engines, licensed from Wankel by NSU, also had problems. But I think the head gasket issue was something that was common to both the rotary engine and the inline four. But I don't remember the B2000 well enough to know what engine was in that. And oh yeah, the 3 on the tree of your old Plymouth. I've never shifted one of those, but I've seen them, mostly in pickup truck service. But yeah, that's like the old slant 6 that Chrysler had in the Valiant and some of the older ones. Yeah, that really marked you as an economist to have 3 on the tree. You know, the B2000, it gave me a passing thought. Remember the Volkswagen Rabbit convertible? And nobody sees them around anymore either, but it's a conventional Rabbit-looking vehicle that ends with a pickup truck bed, you know, on the back instead of an extra passenger area. And you don't see them around either. And what was that horrible Chrysler product, the Omni Horizon pickup truck? Now, a lot of the, in D.C., when Lee Iacocca wanted to bail out of Chrysler, he persuaded the federal government to buy a bunch of those to help bail out Chrysler. And you used to see them running around D.C. in various states of disrepair, all of them with U.S. government tags on them, because they bought them to help subsidize Chrysler until it got its act together again and eventually sold out to Fiat. Boy, what a mix, right? K1YW in the group WA3VJB.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, that old Plymouth that I had, it had a slant 6. You couldn't kill that thing, although I wish I wanted to kill it so many times. Anyway, the DIY, I guess that's a mod of some sort. I'm interested in that too. I did notice some power drift on mine. I don't recall what it was. Maybe it was on the order of like 20 watts or something like that. I'm definitely interested in that mod, and I wonder if I could do it myself, or I hate to send this thing back. I've worked on it before, replaced the fats like 3 times, and blown fat. Not all of them. Just finding the one that went bad. And the problem is, if one is shorted, you can't really tell unless you keep progressively removing them until you find the right one. And you got a 50% chance if you do half of them. So I don't know. It'd be nice if they were like had screw terminals or something like that. Anyway. And then I had a power supply, the low voltage 20 volt supply went out, and Bruce sent me a replacement. But I am curious about that mod or to fix the drift. I notice I've got drift here on my on as it's cold. It starts out about 13 watts and it goes up to 15 watts when it warms up, and that's not so bad. But going into the amp, my carrier goes from like 150 to or 160 or 70 up to 200. So anyway, back down to you, Rob. W1WR, K1YW.
Yeah, W1WR. I think AEX had something about. I think it was his Anon did that in 200 though. He had to put an attenuator, I think, on his Mercury amplifier, because the power would do that on that particular Anon going into the solid state amplifier. Now I asked Bruce, is that a in-house mod I can do? He suggested I send it back. So I've had no really problem with it, other than when I first. Finally, Clark helped me with my 160 antenna box. You can see that on my QRZ page. Taking a 135-foot dipole and putting that into the coil there at the bottom of the feed line and getting me up on 160. And when we fired it up, I'm like, it's running way over 400 some odd watts. Clark goes, I said, no, Clark. I said, that's not supposed to be. That's not right. So I said, we went back to AV meters, and I said, see, it says 230 watts. Now I go back to 160. I call Bruce. He goes, no, send that back. I think he said it was oscillating or something. He fixed it, sent it back very quickly. And I never really, Paul, noticed that high of a power up there. I think I set it like maybe 225, and it would go up 10, maybe 15 watts, but it wouldn't go crazy there or trip anything off. But then, like Clark says, a lot of people are having difficulty with the K70YY because getting your modulation just right, your power in the SWRs. It's like a fire triangle in the fire department we call. You take one of those parts of the triangle out, you don't have a fire. And he says that's the same thing with the K70YY. And the only time mine would tip off was with my foot pedal. I would like double click it and it would show some type of surge there, and it would go back. But I talked to Bruce, it's like, put a light or something in there, or a piezo buzzard there that, you don't realize you're sitting there transmitting and the thing's not transmitting. You look over, oh, high SWRs. But I have a LP 500, so I can look up and see it's not doing. But otherwise, I'm very, very happy with it. I want to definitely get it back in line instead of talking on the Kenwood here and not having to run an amplifier. But no, I would love to get an 80/40. Not that I spend a lot of time on 40, just because of my schedule stuff. But if I'm getting good on the Kenwood there, I may just hold off on the 80/40. Back to you, Paul. W1W1.
Yeah, I forgot Greg had one of these, or I didn't know. I don't know which. But Greg, it's not easily done at home. That's what I got from Bruce as well. And it has to do with an ISO opto coupler, or opto ISO coupler, or however you want to group the words. There's a device or a circuit that couples the modulator, and it uses some kind of an optical circuit. And it's very, how did he put it when I took notes on the phone, but apparently it's fairly critical to the ultimate power output. It needs to be stable, and it's doing a lot of work, and a little bit of temperature variance yields a lot of power variance. So what he did is added a second opto ISO coupler as a feedback loop, so that the first one compensates through the second one and keeps the power stable. And although it sounds simple, that mostly because of my understanding of it. I don't know how actually complex it is in practice, but that's what he does. He adds a second circuit to it for stability, and in my case it keeps to under 4 watts variance from cold to 30-minute transmission. And yeah, that's the thing, as Rob points out, if you're running right on the hairy edge of either SWR or the power level or the modulation level percentage, the protection circuitry says, nah, you can't do one of them. And I'm going to trip. So the power always drifted upward. And I would reset the output of my audio processor once it got warmed up, so that I continued to modulate close to 100%. Well, sure enough, I'd forget. And the next day, the audio output level was set hot for the higher power level of a warmed up Super Senior. And I'd nail it, and boom, it would trip. It's, what's going on? Oh, yeah, that's right, the power thing. So you know what I would take to doing? Flip it over to the dummy load and run it for 10 minutes into the dummy load and then get on the air. It was just like warming up a tube rig, Anyway, I think it's been fixed, and I don't know any further details on it than that, Greg. Is yours a 40? I guess yours is an 80, where Rob's is a 160/80. But as I said, I help maintain this Facebook page. I don't think you're on Facebook, Greg, but a lot of the updates over there are include the history of the Super Senior and some other stuff that Bruce has shared with me that I've posted on that page there. So you're welcome to join up if you're on Facebook. What else? I had other notes here. Oh, yeah, Rob, I'm looking forward to your getting back on that, although it's a 160/80. The TS-890 just doesn't have the full-bodied, full-signal sound of the Super Senior. And I wonder if you saw my video that I made of the Max audio processor. This is the first time I've talked with somebody who I'm also in touch with on Facebook, who may have seen that thing. 6.5 minutes of product review, Greg. of the Max audio processor that I think I worked you among many others when I borrowed a prototype test mule for a review that I've since turned into a video review. So I just posted that yesterday. K1YW and the group WA3VJB.
Okay, Paul, very good. Yeah, I kind of stalled out on the assembly of my Max audio processor. I started on the resistors, and I still have everything in boxes to keep from losing parts and all that. So I got to get back to it, make progress. But I've been just so busy at work, and when I can steal away time, I like to get on the air rather than work on things. But yeah, I would like to see that video that you have, and I'll check out your Facebook page. Yeah, I'm not on Facebook, but I think I could at least get to the page and see what's up there. And yeah, mine is 160/80. If it was 40, I'd probably be trying to run it here. I wish I had gotten the 80/40 actually, because I do like 40 meters quite a bit, and I probably spend more time here. But Rob, yeah, the double clicking, false PTT situation. I've had that problem as well, and I thought, there were some situations where, no, this is my thinking, it may not be right, but I was thinking that what was happening was I would start talking into the microphone and while I was switching from standby into transmit, and getting the thing would shut down when that would happen. So I made this little delay box with an Arduino little micro. So what it does is it controls some relays, and it shunts out or attenuates the mic audio while it's until it's in transmit for about 50 or 100 milliseconds, and then it does the reverse on going out of transmit. And I thought that would solve the problem, but I still think I have problems tripping where I have too much audio, or maybe it's a negative peak that is doing it. So I'm hoping that the Max audio processor would solve all that, the negative peaks and a good limiter. I have a Symmetrix 528E that I have set up, but sometimes I mess around with it, and I think I get too hot on the audio, and that trips it. I run mine about 250 watts of carrier. I was thinking of pushing it a little harder, but I don't know if it's worth it. But anyway, back over to you, Rob. W1WR and the group K1YW.
Yeah, very good, Greg. W1WR. Well, Paul, you know who my neighbor is, Clark. I know about that unit when you was working on it up at the league when we were holding the AM rally there. I got pictures of that stuff. So, and I asked him, "Do I need it?" He goes, "No, you don't need it." What I got here, I got a CLR system there, a PMC 300A peak modulating controller into a DBX 166 with a 15-band equalizer, and then an Elise mixing board. So everything's like kind of even out there. And then I have a super relay keying system that they use at the radio station that we closed, one of the stations that closed down. So when Clark closes a radio station down, I'm sitting inside the dumpster. Like, feed me. So that's pretty much set here, and with the microphone. Yeah, so like I said, if any one of those have I learned out of the equation there, it's gonna key that thing and just throw it all off there. Yeah, I think I ran like 230, and I forget how many what I was putting out in PPE there, but it seemed to control it there. there, and I know I've seen a lot of super seniors going back up on eBay because people couldn't get what they say, couldn't get it tamed, and it was the thing there. I'm telling people that this is the way you got to go. I'm trying to think there. Yeah. Well, the reason I got the 160 back in the days when I was on AM most of the time on 80 meters with the guys down there, 38, 73, 75. It was the days that 80 meters was going long at nighttime and everybody was heading for the hills for 160. And I like 160. It's not a crowded band. 40, yeah, it's nice because it's been real good, and 80's kind of been stinky lately at certain times. But I find 40 meters is like flypaper. It just seems to attract the wrong type of people. Over you, Paul. W1WR.
I know what you mean. Yeah, I'll leave that go, but nudge and a wink. Well, yeah, no, I knew Clark was your neighbor. I just got an email back from him that as a result of my view, I have qualified for one of the first Max T-shirts. Apparently, it comes only in a 5XL as he tries to recognize market need. I don't know what he's saying with that. I won't take it personally. Yeah. Hey, Greg, if your email's good, I see a .ru. Isn't that a Russia thing? I thought maybe you were making a joke with your email address. I'll send you a link to it. It's on YouTube. I don't know if it's open or not on Facebook, because the groups I've posted it on, we've actually had to shut down to public viewing. A lot of scammers and flippers and bots and who knows what else are infiltrating any public open group on Facebook. So not only is an amplitude modulation page closed down to anybody who's not a member or subscriber, but so is the K7 DYY page. So I don't think you can see anything but the opening logo that tells you it exists. And of course, you're welcome to apply for membership. I'll get you right in. But it's not just casual viewing. Yeah, the whole thing about the 160/80 Super Senior is interesting. That was the first one he came out with, and I couldn't get a handle on it as to whether there's a lot more of them out there than the 80/40, just because they had a head start in the marketplace, or whether people actually were hoping to get on at high power on 160 with that very rig, and as a result held on to them. But some people now have both, the 160/80 and the 80/40. There are some subtle differences. I understand from Janice AB2RA that the 40 meter version has a sharper filter on its high frequency audio response, and that it can't take quite as much treble as can the 160/80. I haven't found that to be true, not by comparison, but in practice as to how much treble I can dial in on this thing. The Optimod that I'm running has a rather substantial pre-emphasis curve on it, and that's never been the reason I've tripped the Super Senior. So I can only imagine if I could squeeze even more out of it on 80 and 160. It's like, gad, I already am doing plenty. I don't need any more than that. So I'm staying within its confines. And interesting that both you guys have noticed the lack of warning when you don't get a bona fide transmission at PTT. Because I also have wanted like a bright LED. I don't think I'd want a noise, but a bright LED to draw my attention to the rig would be far better than the LCD display that simply trips into a high SWR reading. Not only is the angle to the LCD critical to being able to see it, but the typeface is certainly not distinguished by an ordinary frequency of operation versus high SWR. It doesn't do anything, in other words. It doesn't flash or otherwise get your attention. And yeah, I was embarrassed very soon after I got mine to have keyed up and made a transmission, only to find out 8 minutes later that the other guys had continued the conversation because I wasn't on the air. Now, that's my own fault, because usually I watch a scope. And of course, as soon as your pattern isn't there, you know you're not on. But in that instance, I wasn't watching the scope, and it got me. And of course, I since took steps to settle out the antenna system here so that it didn't trip on that matter. I usually run at a 1/4 kilowatt even on. That dates back to my very early comparison tests with the Collins 300G as to whether people could distinguish a broadcast transmitter from the Super Senior on any of its characteristics, either its audio or its signal, and they couldn't. So I just left it set for 250 watts so that I could use the same audio chain at the same settings, and just stayed there ever since. Anyway, it's about time for lunch here at this end. Greg, aren't you due back at work? I texted our friend Dave, by the way, W2VW, Rob, after you indicated he had texted you. And I said, why aren't you on the air with us instead of texting with Rob? And he wrote back and said it's Shingles Day. And I didn't know whether that was the medical malaise or whether he was working on the roof. Sounds like he's working on the roof. Anyway, Greg, back to you. And nice to hear you on, spend some time on the radio here with you like we have been able to do. Unfettered, with plenty of elbow room, plenty of signal. It's been nice. K1YW in the group WA3VJB.
Okay, Paul. Yeah, very good. Yeah, if you could send me a link to whatever content I can't get to. Yeah, I don't know if I want to get on Facebook and get an account and all that. It's just I'd rather avoid it and just try to use other means to find the content. But yeah, when it goes off. If it trips out, there's some. I've been in the dark like that too, where I keep talking and I'm not looking at my meter, and I have an LP100, or if I don't have a receiver on, or with the Anon you could actually see the transmit pan adapter while you're talking, so it's a different story. But with the DIY, you've got to do some monitoring. I did make this cute little project. It's got an 80. I can't remember the part number. It's got one of those analog devices, logarithmic power detectors, and I use a little micro to set these. It's an addressable LED strip. Anyway, Paul, I'll send you a video of it. And the thing is, it will light up the whole room. So when you do go off the air, you'll definitely notice it, even if you're looking somewhere far in the other direction, because it's that bright. But you could use it kind of like as a field strength meter. For tuning or just looking at, you could see the modulation, peaks and all that. It's fast enough. Anyway, yeah, I do got to get going here, so I gotta do something around, get back to work here at 12:30 almost. So thanks for reminding me. Anyway. And one comment about the DIY. Yeah, when I got mine, it was probably 2017, 2018. I'm not sure which year, but the 160 was still. I had this really nice 160 meter inverted L. And so I was basically almost always on 160. So I decided that, that would be the rig. And 80 was just going long. As soon as it got dark, the band was so poor because of the low spot in the cycle. So, yeah, so that was the reason why I picked the 160-80 instead of the 80-40. But, times change and all that. And enjoy it while you can, I guess. Anyway, I'm going to sign out, listen out, and over to you, Rob. W1WR, 73 guys, K1YW.
Yeah, very good, W1WR. I don't know if I've ever worked you, Greg. I recognize your call signs on your QRZ page. Maybe we have. I just never logged you in there. So Yeah, that's the reason there. I might find something to use, but yeah, I called Bruce there and told him the year I got mine in 2018. He says, and it falls under that. For that, all the newer stuff is going out. It doesn't have that problem. And let's call it Peter W1ZZZ there. I always talk to him on the AM carrier net, and we just celebrated 20 years a couple of weeks ago. The AM Joe N1VIV. You know, I always talk to Peter, and I knew he had one, and I was ready to pull the trigger. I asked him, I said, what do you think of it? Well, that was in the early times. Peter says, it's the only rig I sent back I don't know how many times. He said, Bruce does take care of you. So 2018, I pulled the trigger. I'm very happy with it, with the help of Clark there. So, like I said, he's my neighbor, my best friend, on the retainer technician there. So he does my electronic stuff. I do his fabrication things for him, but very happy. Paul, if you can send, I don't know if Greg knows about those fan kits that I posted early a couple of years back that I got on Amazon. I think they're 60 millimeters, and you can snap those on. You don't have to take. Some people taking the grills off. All I found out, I just gutted part of the snap-on filters there. Took one of the part of the casings of it, the outside of it, backed off on the set screws in there, the Allen screws a little bit, and they clip right on there, and you can just vacuum them off. So if Greg doesn't have that, if you can send them over there. If not, I'll try to find it on Amazon, and I can send them over an email. So, all right, that's my old buzzer transmission. Yeah, I got to go to the trough. It's feed time. So 7-3, guys. Good talking to everybody, and hopefully soon I'll be back on, well, not so much on 40, but I'll be back on 80 with a bigger signal. W1WOR. Take care, guys. Over to you, Paul.
W1WOR, K1YW sign, WA3VJB. Yeah, I will. I'll send that along, too. The Desert Storm option, Greg, what we're talking about is instead of the wire grill that's on the stock DIY Super Senior, there's a little plastic housing that fits right under the mounting bolts. It's a two-part housing. And in my case, I don't know if I told you this, Rob, but I think you saw it. I was able to undo 3 of the 4 bolts and then the 4th bolt without getting into the rig, just by angling everything. And I put those plastic grills on in place of the metal grill without having to take the fans all the way out, nor getting into the top cover of the thing. And in my case, Greg, I've actually cut and installed some filter media in there. Fairly high flow filter media, because Bruce had warned against blocking the airflow in any way. But man, I've got one of those handheld infrared thermometers. And Rob, I think I've told you this. I don't notice any change in temperature whatsoever of the air going in versus the air coming out. Even when I've left it into a dummy load for like a half hour, 45 minutes just to see. I think the fan on the right is doing the most work. That must be the actual transmitting MOSFET module on that side. I don't know. I think it is. But the 2 on the left, man, they're stone cold. So I'm not worried about the filtration doing any interference in the airflow. Anyway, catch you guys later. I'll send this along, and it's been nice spending some time on the rig roll. K1YW gone, WOR gone. Catch you shots later. WA3 VJB Annapolis. Out of here for now.